How about this? The U.S. Park Police are...
Start by storming Blackgate!
At the end of the day, my number one is probably going to be the movie I am, most anticipated even more. And it comes out at the end of the year as well. My number one is Dune. That's right, Denis Villeneuve's latest movie. Same guy who gave us Blade Runner 2049, Sicario, Enemy, Prisoners. He's a great director. I love him. I think he's one of the best talents working today. And as my girlfriend puts it, Dune the book is essentially Game of Thrones, but science fiction. And I'm excited to hear that. I love Game of Thrones and I love science fiction. None of that Star Wars stuff that, in my opinion, is just fantasy. I love science fiction where it actually gets behind the science of it, and also at the same time has light fiction to it. I love Blade Runner 2049, 2001: Space Odyssey, Dark City. I just love this type of movies, and that's why I'm really looking forward to Dune. Plus, it has a great cast. It's coming out on the end of the year.
What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is, of course, my review for Dune, which is a 2021 science fiction drama. It is a film directed by Denis Villeneuve, who's the same director that Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, Enemy, Prisoners, and a slew of other movies. He's a director that honestly is one of my favorite directors working today. And Dune is a film that was originally supposed to come out in 2020, but obviously COVID-19 hit, the pandemic hit, still going on. But what happened was it got pushed from December 2020 to then October 2021. And they did release a trailer in 2020. I believe it was towards the end of the summer, and it got me pretty pumped because, truth be told, the reason why this movie was my number one most anticipated movie of 2020 was simply because of Denis Villeneuve directing it, in addition to the ensemble cast, which is so many actors that, honestly, if I were to mention it now, it would take me 5 minutes because it's just so many actors. They all do a great job, by the way. I loved every single cast member in this movie. They do an incredible job. But going back to what I was saying, the cast, the director, and then also a little bit of information in terms of the movie itself was that, again, Dune is considered apparently one of the best science fiction books. I personally haven't read it. My fiance has. And she said essentially how she pitched it to me was that it's a science fiction Game of Thrones. I love science fiction and I love Game of Thrones, so that, again, combined with the cast and the director, made it my most anticipated movie of 2020, and then ended up getting pushed to 2021 as my most anticipated film of 2021, especially after I saw the trailer. Like, holy cow. But after I saw the trailer, I tried to avoid pretty much anything, any visuals, any knowledge, except that I did know that Hans Zimmer did the score. And I will be honest, I did listen to the score of this film prior to watching this movie, like several weeks back, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it, listening to it by itself, so I was kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to feel going into this movie. But after watching the movie, I have to say, holy cow, what an experience. This is an incredible film. This is technically part one. We might be getting a part two. Obviously, if it does well at the box office, we'll get that part two. So go out, support this movie, watch it in theaters several times if you can. But this is part one, and I have to say, even if we don't get a sequel, I'll still be okay with that because I really liked this film. I think that even as a standalone film, it works on its own. Sure, it does have a cliffhanger ending, and I'll get into that towards the end, but I think that as a whole, it does work really well as a film. It's a film that from frame one, it immersed me. Honestly, the opening shot, just the sound mixing, Hans Zimmer score swelling in, and the first visual, oh my goodness. I knew right then and there that I was in good hands. This is a film that from a technical aspect is flawless, both audio-wise and visually-wise. There's nothing I would change about this film. Absolutely nothing. Denis Villeneuve has it where the sound mixing is very noticeable in a good way. Like, I feel like a lot of films, I don't really notice the uniqueness of like the sound effects of like either the guns that are utilized or like, certain things kind of passing, certain vehicles, the way that they sound. But I feel like when I listen to Denis Villeneuve's films, I notice that kind of stuff in a good way because, again, it makes the details kind of present themselves even more so. And it's the same with Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan's sound mixing also is very noticeable for me. And I personally like it. Some people might be like, oh, well, it's noticeable, so it's distracting. And it's like, no, for me personally, it gets more appreciation value for myself personally. Not only that, though, as I mentioned, I mean, the way that the sound effects are incorporated with the score, though, is really good. Hans Zimmer's score, I have to say, is incredible. And I love the bass. The bass of the score, oh my goodness, it is so good, especially during the action scenes, which I'll get into in a minute. But the cinematography meshing with the sound mixing as well as the score. Oh my goodness, it's incredible. The scope of this film is just amazing. I really liked also the usage of color. This is a film that doesn't have a lot of primary colors per se. It's a film that uses a lot of like gray, black, white, and I think that the way it does it is really intriguing. You wouldn't think that it would be interesting looking given the fact that it's mostly gray, but rest assured, it is very interesting. Especially, other thing that's amazing is the fact that this movie takes place a lot in like sand, and I feel like a lot of times people kind of look at sand and say that movies that have sand, like The English Patient, are boring, and this movie kind of obviously proves that wrong because this movie is very interesting to look at. The uses of shadows, I love the details of the shadow. Honestly, this is going to be a great 4K movie to watch. Please, Warner Bros., do a physical media release of this in 4K, please. Because it's a great looking movie. Again, I loved the camera movement, especially going to the action scenes that I was trying to mention, is that those action scenes are incredible. The scope, they feel very epic. It's almost like one of those things when you're watching it, you feel as though the camera isn't really kind of doing it justice. Like you feel like, by that I mean that you feel like the camera is showing it, but it does so in a way that makes it feel like when you're watching it, there's even more to it. It feels like you're there in the action, whilst at other moments it feels like it's a grandiose spectacle that you're experiencing because of like the large armies, because of the hand-to-hand combat that's going on, because of the running. There's just a lot of things that kind of assemble to where it's like you feel as though you're both in the action at sometimes, whilst at the other times you feel like you're able to sit back and really enjoy the scope. Again, I really do feel like this is a film that needs to be seen in theaters, the biggest screen possible. I think that this is a film that needs to be 100%. If you are watching this at home, I don't think you're going to be doing it justice. It's just like when you watch Gravity. When you watched Gravity the first time, you wanted to watch that in theaters. I know I did. I saw it a couple of times in theaters. And again, Dune is similar to that, where it's like you want to be immersed. You want to kind of experience that. And it's definitely an immersive experience, both visually and audio, as I mentioned. But not only that, I really liked the production design, the costume design, the makeup. These are things that really also emulated a unique look. It's not even just the fact that, as I mentioned, with the cinematography, the shadows, the lighting, and everything, it really does help also that there is obviously a lot of houses in this movie, you know, the different groups and everything, and they all have a very unique look to them. I especially like the villains. I thought the villains, like the bald look with, you know, the focus on like almost like ghostly white look. I thought that was something that was really quite effective that I really liked. I was a big fan of the villain. I think that Stellan Skarsgård's performance was really good. And Dave Bautista wasn't in it that much, but I liked his performance personally. I've heard some people kind of complain about his performance, but I personally liked it. And again, going back to the ensemble cast that I mentioned earlier, I think everyone does a great job. Rebecca Ferguson, Timothy Chalamet, Oscar Isaac, Jason Momoa, they all do a great job. Josh Brolin. I liked every single cast member. There wasn't a single performance that I was watching and saying, not a fan of. Everyone does a good job. Some obviously don't have that much screen time as opposed to others, but again, as a whole, I was entertained watching all these characters. I'm sure too that the ones that don't have that much screen time, I'm sure that they'll get even more so in the sequel if we get it. But as a whole, I really like this film. I think that this is a film that, again, the scope, the original approach. This is also a film I forgot to mention that clearly inspired like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, John Carter, a slew of other movies, but it's able to say, hey, yes, we know we inspired all these movies, but at the same time, give a unique approach to that. Because, you know, we've seen movies before, again, where it's like, you know, obviously the hero's journey, but I felt like this was a movie that the way it approached it really kind of felt unique and fresh that I personally really liked. And going to the ending, I think that the ending is overall something that it obviously is setting up a sequel, but at the same time, I personally think that it does hold up on its own. It reminds me kind of like Fellowship of the Ring, where it sets up a sequel, but at the same time, you could watch it just that and be satisfied. For me personally, can't speak for other audiences because I was actually watching this movie, and the end credits came up, and then there was like these three teenagers that were sitting like close to me, and they were like, "That's it! I watched 2.5 hours for that," and I'm like, oh my goodness. I literally said out loud, I was like, well, this is what blockbusters should thrive to be. I'm sorry, like you have to watch 50, Marvel sequels, and you have no issue with that, but then you have an issue with the original IP that's doing this. Okay, whatever. But overall, in terms of negatives, though, going to my personal negatives, I don't really have any per se, though I will say that at the end of the second act, I don't know if this was my bladder per se, because I did drink a lot of water. I drink over a gallon of water a day. And I did also drink a cup of coffee while obviously watching the movie. I don't know if it was that, you know, kind of integrating into my brain to where like I was immersed to then I was kind of focusing on, oh my goodness, I have to go to the bathroom. I wasn't sure if it was that where like the third act kind of had me feeling like it was dragging a bit, or if it was again the fact that the water and the coffee kind of got to me. I don't know. I need to watch this a second time on an empty bladder to be able to say if the third act, if it wasn't as consistent as the first and second act. I'll let you guys know if I watch when I watch the second time in theaters. Because again, I felt like the second act especially was holy cow, it was amazing. But the third act, it just kind of like dropped a little bit in quality, if that makes sense. Like I feel like the first and second act were easily 5 out of 5. But I felt like the third act kind of dipped a little bit. But nonetheless, that's just me personally. I think that it could be just because, again, it was setting up a bit more in terms of part 2. But again, I'll let you guys know more so when I watch this a second time. But overall, this is a film that it's an experience. It is what a blockbuster should be. It's a technical achievement. It's a film I could definitely see picking up many Oscar nominations, especially for the technical aspects. And it's a film that I don't know if mainstream audiences are going to like it, but I do know if you're a fan of Denis Villeneuve, I do know if you like science fiction films, if you like adult films, then I think that this is a film that you will definitely like and appreciate, because for me personally, I gotta say, Dune is a really good movie. One of my favorites of the year, hands down, and it's definitely a film that I personally would be giving a 4.5 out of 5-star rating, which, but it's like a hot sauce rating, it's a good old Tabasco sauce rating. So yeah, I really like this film, and who knows, maybe this is a film that when I watch the second time, maybe I'll bump it up to that 5 out of 5. You never know. Blade Runner 2049, believe it or not, I think the first time I saw it, I gave it like a 4.75 out of 5. It wasn't until I saw it a second time where I gave it a 5 out of 5, and still do. So guys, that's my thoughts again on Dune. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think about it? Will there be a part 2? Let me know your thoughts down below, guys. I'm hoping that, again, there is a part 2. But, again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on this movie. And as always, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys later.